Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be exploring something really fascinating. It's all about the connection between personality and heart health.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of the type A personality?
I have, yeah.
I think most people have heard that term thrown around, but have you ever wondered where that idea came from?
It's a good question.
Well, we're going to take you back to 1959 and unpack this groundbreaking study by these two cardiologists, Meyer Friedman and Ray Rosenman.
Okay.
They really kind of shook things up in the medical world, so...
And what's really captivating about this study is that it all started with a simple observation.
Oh.
You know, these cardiologists, they noticed this unusual wear pattern on the furniture in their waiting room.
What do you mean?
Well, the edges of the seats were more worn down than the rest.
Huh.
Almost as if their patients were, literally on edge.
Oh, that's a pretty interesting detail. I can see how that would spark some curiosity.
Yeah.
Did they think that their heart patients were just more fidgety than others?
Well, it was more than just fidgeting. Friedman and Rosenman started to wonder if there was a connection between this behavior and heart health.
Uh-huh.
They theorized that maybe their cardiac patients might share a certain behavioral pattern that set them apart
Okay.
from other patients.
So that's where this idea of the type A personality came from.
Yeah.
But how did they actually define it? How did they put, parameters around that?
Well, they described type A individuals as driven, competitive, ambitious, always in a hurry.
Sure.
They're the kind of people who are constantly striving to achieve their goals, often juggling multiple tasks and deadlines.
Right.
And this isn't just a casual observation.
Yeah.
They developed these rigorous methods to assess and categorize these behavioral patterns.
Okay, so it was a very methodical approach.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing they needed a comparison group, right?
They did.
Enter type B.
Exactly.
Okay.
So they contrasted type A with these type B individuals who tend to be more relaxed, less competitive, and less driven by a sense of urgency. But it's important to note that, they saw this as a spectrum,
Oh, okay.
not like a black and white categorization.
So not like you're one or the other. There's a...
Everyone falls somewhere along that spectrum, exhibiting varying degrees of type A and type B characteristics.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense that personality wouldn't be so cut and dry.
Yeah.
So how did they go about studying this? Did they just ask people if they felt type A?
Definitely not.
Okay, good.
They took a very scientific approach.
Okay.
They recruited these male executives and non-executives,
Yeah.
carefully assessed their behavior patterns through interviews and self-assessments,
Mm-hmm.
and then divided them into these type A and type B groups.
Okay.
Then came the really interesting part,
All right, what is it?
a battery of tests.
Oh, wow. Okay, what kind of tests are we talking about here?
They examined everything from lifestyle factors like smoking and diet to physiological markers like cholesterol levels and blood pressure.
Okay.
They even analyzed electrocardiogram readings and checked for arcus senilis.
What is that?
Arcus senilis is those fatty deposits that can form around the cornea,
Oh,
which can indicate elevated cholesterol.
interesting.
They wanted a comprehensive picture of each participant's health.
Wow, that's a lot of data to gather.
Yeah, it was.
So what did they find? I mean, were there any clear differences between the groups?
One of the most surprising initial findings was that the two groups were quite similar in many aspects.
Really?
Yeah.
How so?
Well, their weight, the number of hours they worked, their exercise habits,
Okay.
even the number of calories and fat in their diets were largely comparable.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
I would have thought that those lifestyle choices would play a much bigger role.
That's what they initially hypothesized too,
Okay.
but that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Despite these similarities, there were some striking differences that emerged in other areas.
As what?
Well, the type A group had significantly higher cholesterol levels than the type B group. And remember, this was back in 1959 when the link between cholesterol and heart disease wasn't as well established as it is today.
Ah, so they were on the cutting edge of that discovery. High cholesterol being a major risk factor for heart disease.
Right.
I'm assuming that wasn't the only difference that they found, though.
You're absolutely right.
Okay.
They also looked at the incidence of coronary heart disease,
Okay.
or CHD,
CHD.
which is essentially the narrowing of the arteries that supply blood to the heart. And the results were pretty startling.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat here. What did they find?
A whopping 28% of the type A group showed evidence of coronary heart disease,
Wow.
compared to a mere 4% in the type B group.
That's a huge difference.
It is.
But couldn't there be other factors at play here?
Uh-huh.
Like, what about smoking or family history?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And Friedman and Rosenman were very thorough in addressing those very points.
Okay.
They found that while type A individuals did tend to smoke more, smoking alone couldn't explain that significant difference in heart disease rates.
So even after accounting for smoking, there was still this strong link between type A behavior and heart disease?
Precisely.
Okay, so they really did their due diligence there.
Yeah.
And what about family history? Did they look into that at all?
They did, and they took the same rigorous approach when examining family history.
Okay.
While the type A group did have a higher incidence of heart disease in their families, it still couldn't fully account for the discrepancy in their findings.
Okay.
Even when comparing individuals with similar family histories,
Okay.
those exhibiting type A behaviors were still more likely to have heart disease.
So it really does seem like they systematically ruled out these other major contributing factors.
Right.
But what was it about this type A behavior pattern that seemed to be so detrimental to heart health?
Well, the prevailing theory points to stress and how type A individuals respond to it.
Okay.
They tend to experience this heightened physiological response to stress. The bodies go into overdrive.
So it's like they're constantly in fight or flight mode.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Their bodies pump out more adrenaline and other stress hormones, leading to increased heart rate and blood pressure.
Yeah.
Now imagine this happening day after day, year after year.
Oh, yeah.
This chronic activation of the stress response can really take a toll on the cardiovascular system.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So essentially, it's not just about having a stressful job or lifestyle.
Right.
It's about how your body reacts to that stress.
Exactly.
That seems to make the difference.
Yeah.
But how does that actually damage the arteries?
Well, think of your arteries as the highways of your body carrying blood to your heart and other organs.
Okay.
When your blood pressure is consistently elevated, it's like those highways are experiencing this constant heavy traffic.
Okay.
Over time, this can damage the walls of the arteries, making them more susceptible to plaque buildup.
And that plaque buildup is what leads to narrowing of the arteries and eventually heart disease. So you can see how this chronic stress response in type A individuals can set off this chain reaction that ultimately increases their risk of developing heart disease.
Yeah,
This is pretty mind-blowing.
it is.
It's amazing to think that this simple observation about worn furniture
Right.
led to such a groundbreaking discovery.
Yeah.
This study really changed the way we think about the connection between our minds and our bodies.
It was a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
And this study really sparked the emergence of entire fields like health psychology and cardiopsychology, which focus on understanding the psychological factors that contribute to physical health.
Okay.
It's not just about treating the physical symptoms anymore.
Right.
It's about recognizing the crucial role that our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors play in our overall well-being.
So this type of concept wasn't just a passing fad in the medical world.
Not at all.
Okay.
In fact, the research has continued to evolve and expand,
Okay.
addressing new challenges in populations.
So like what are some examples of that?
For instance, there have been some fascinating studies exploring the link between type A behavior and driving habits.
Wait, type A and driving. I have to hear more about this.
Well, imagine those classic type A characteristics: impatience, competitiveness,
Yeah.
that constant sense of urgency.
Uh-huh.
Now picture them behind the wheel.
Okay, I'm already picturing tailgating road rage.
Yeah,
Maybe a few choice words muttered under their breath.
you're not far off.
Okay.
Studies have shown that people with type A personalities tend to be involved in more traffic accidents,
Oh, wow.
receive more speeding tickets, and are more prone to road rage incidents.
Really?
Yeah, they're often impatient in traffic, take more risks,
Okay.
and exhibit more aggressive driving behaviors overall.
So basically, if you're a passenger in a car and your friend is a classic type A,
Yeah.
you might want to buckle up and hold on tight.
What a good idea.
But seriously, it's interesting to see how these personality tendencies can extend beyond the workplace
Right.
and have real-world consequences.
Absolutely. Yeah. It highlights the importance of managing stress and developing healthy coping mechanisms for our overall well-being, even in seemingly mundane activities like driving.
Yeah,
We can't always control the traffic,
right.
but we can control our reactions to it.
That's a good point. And I know this research has also been applied to understanding stress and burnout,
Yes.
especially in working women.
Uh-huh.
Can you tell me more about that?
As more women enter the workforce, researchers started investigating the impact of work-related stress and burnout on their health,
Okay.
especially their cardiovascular health. And they found that women experiencing high levels of stress and burnout,
Okay.
particularly in demanding jobs, were at increased risk of developing coronary heart disease.
So essentially the type A concept, which was initially studied primarily in men, also holds true for women facing similar pressures in the workplace.
Precisely.
Okay.
And it really underscored the importance of recognizing the unique stressors that women often face, both professionally and personally.
Yeah.
Juggling work demands family responsibilities, and societal expectations can create a perfect storm for chronic stress and burnout,
Yeah.
which, as we've seen, can have serious implications for heart health.
This all points to the importance of stress management and developing healthy coping strategies,
Yes.
no matter who you are or what you do for a living.
Right.
But are there specific things that have been shown to be effective in modifying type I behaviors?
Absolutely. This research has led to the development of various interventions and therapies
Okay.
aimed at helping individuals manage their stress response and modify those type A behaviors.
So there are things that people can do.
There are.
Okay.
These programs often incorporate techniques like relaxation training,
Okay.
mindfulness exercises, time management skills, and cognitive restructuring.
So it's not just about telling people to relax or calm down.
Yeah.
It's about giving them practical tools and strategies to manage stress in a healthy way.
Exactly.
But what about the nature versus nurture debate?
Is there any evidence to suggest that type A behavior is inherited,
Okay.
or is it primarily shaped by our environment and experiences?
That's a fascinating question, and one that researchers have been exploring for decades. While Friedman and Rosamond's initial study didn't really delve into the genetics of type A behavior, subsequent research has shed some light on this nature versus nurture debate.
So what have we learned since then? Is there a type A gene lurking in our DNA, or is it more about the environment that we're raised in?
Well, the evidence suggests that both nature and nurture play a role.
Okay.
Early studies showed that children of type A parents were more likely to exhibit similar traits. But this could be due to learned behaviors
Right.
or shared environmental factors.
Okay.
However, more recent research, using twin and adoption studies,
All right.
has provided some pretty compelling evidence for a genetic component.
Oh, wow.
Identical twins who share 100% of their genes are more similar in their type A tendencies than fraternal twins who only share 50%. So it seems like our genes might predispose some of us toward these type A behaviors.
Right.
But does that mean we're stuck with it?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
While genes may deal us a certain hand, our environment and choices still play a significant role.
Okay.
Think of it this way.
Right.
Genes might load the gun, but it's our environment and lifestyle that pull the trigger.
I like that analogy.
So even if we inherit a predisposition towards type A behavior, we can learn to manage our stress response and develop healthier coping mechanisms.
That's a really empowering message.
It is.
It's not about changing who we are, but about understanding ourselves better
Right.
and making choices that support our well-being.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up, I have one more question for you.
Okay.
We've talked about type A and type B,
Mm-hmm.
but is there a type C personality?
That's a great question. And it turns out there's a whole body of research on this so-called type C personality.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're often described as people pleasers who tend to suppress their emotions, particularly anger and resentment.
Oh.
They often have difficulty expressing their needs and asserting themselves.
So they're almost the opposite of type A's, who are very outwardly driven and assertive.
In some ways, yes.
Okay.
While type A individuals are known for their outward expression of stress and emotions, type C individuals tend to internalize them.
Interesting. And does this have implications for their health?
Some research suggests a possible link between type C personality traits and an increased risk of certain health conditions, particularly those associated with chronic stress and a suppressed immune system.
That makes sense given their tendency to bottle up their emotions.
Oh.
So what's the takeaway for our listeners today? What can they do with this knowledge about type A, type B, and now type C personalities?
Well, I think the most important message is that self-awareness is key.
Okay.
Paying attention to your own behavioral patterns, how you respond to stress, and how you express your emotions can be incredibly valuable in understanding your overall health risks.
Uh-huh.
It's not about labeling yourself, but about gaining insights into your own tendencies and making informed choices to support your well-being.
This has been an incredible deep dive.
It has.
We've covered so much ground, from worn furniture to genetics.
Yeah.
It's amazing to think that our personalities can have such a profound impact on our physical health.
It really is.
And hopefully our listeners have come away with some practical takeaways.
I hope so.
Remember, managing stress, developing healthy coping mechanisms, and being mindful of your responses to challenging situations are all key to protecting your heart.
Great advice.
We've learned that knowledge is power, especially when it comes to our health. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of personality and heart health.